Greetings and welcome to the Saroth the Mage Experiment. Today I have a very, very special guest, a returning guest, Jake Stratton-Kent. And he is going to be telling us about his new book, which is a grimoire and a book about grimoiring. Is that right, Jake?
Yeah, that's what it is. Because I figured a grimoire might be a good way to talk about grimoires and what is legitimate in grimoire practice. One thing that is certainly legitimate in grimoire practice is forging grimoires. So,
So you forged one.
I forged one, yeah.
So what's it called, Jake?
Oh, well, that would be telling.
Oh.
Well, okay. It has a subtitle as well as a title. The main title is The Sworn and Secret Grimoire.
Nice. I like it.
Yeah, with sort of nods in the direction of the Secret Grimoire at Arbitel, but also the Sworn Book of Honorius and things like that. Yeah. And of course, it's sworn, because it's totally authentic. But it was also sort of only recently written. Yeah.
Have you got a release date for it yet, Jake?
Yeah, Erzbet assures me that July 20th is when it's coming out. Nothing's going to stop it, touch wood.
Oh, that's going to sell a pile. I'll certainly be buying one. Erzbet's going to be the next guest on the show, by the way.
Oh, wonderful.
Adium Press.
He totally deserves it.
Yeah. So tell us about the book then, Jake. Sell it to us.
Well, it was originally conceived as something else. I've been trying to write a primer for a while, but I've run into various problems. One of which is that no good occult primer has ever been a beginner manual. Anyway, they all throw you in the deep end. And you're also in a different historical spot from when the last bunch of really good primers were written, with 1970s. I mean, not to say there's been no good ones since, but yeah, we're in a different place now with access to the magical pathway, dozens more grimoires, and lots of other stuff. So the landscape's changed. But anyway, in getting back, I thought, well, while I'm trying to do this, I could just quickly get a slightly edited Secret Grimoire at Arbitel out, because I thought that's a handy place to start. It's really quite simple to operate on. But the more I looked at it, the more problematic it was. Some of the magical characters, for instance, completely unreadable. There's a list of incenses which are all attributed to the wrong planets. There's all sorts of dodgy stuff going on there, so a quick re-edit wasn't adequate. I had to go back to where the materials came from, which Joseph Peterson's brought a masterly version of that out, and it's sort of Hockley and Sibley and so on in the ancestry. But Secret Grimoire has been called a forgery and a rip-off of an earlier book, but that earlier book is also a forgery. It was put together from authentic components by Frederick Hockley, who ran a grimoire scriptorium, essentially, in the period before the Golden Dawn, etc. One of the last people who was actually producing handwritten grimoires correctly on tell. So I thought, right, it's a forgery based on a forgery. That this is my clue. There was things I wanted to change, because and things that are completely, like I say, in Arbitel, that were utterly screwed to start with. But going back to an earlier version wasn't necessarily the best solution. So I thought, sod it. This is where my primer's taken off from. I'm going to reforge it and say what is legitimate when forging grimoires. And here's a lot of information about how the rituals are constructed and how you can do it yourself if you found a pile of bits of grimoire ritual, how you can assemble them into a complete one. Some of the places I've got my material from may surprise people. But yeah, I think it's all perfectly legit. And there's discussions of various nefarious angles of what makes a grimoire magician in the old days and how that applies now. Which academics don't tend to go into, let alone look for sort of practical solutions and say, well, you guys could try this nowadays, and they had much the same implications as that they did back in the 16th century. So I thought it's time that someone did that, with this reputable practitioner like myself, for instance.
So could an absolute beginner use this book and this book only to get magical results?
I certainly think so, actually. There's a big slice of talismanic magic, operations in the 7 days of the week, how to work with planetary spirits in the same kind of pattern. But it also, like I say, it gives you a handle on other materials. By helping change the way we look at these things. They're not to be done by rote necessarily. You can actually compose anew. Sometimes you have to. I mean, you might find rituals that are badly mangled, bits missing, and a wonderful bit in the middle, but where's the rest? So being able to put a ritual together from scratch by being able to identify the key components wherever they occur. So, well, I'll take that component from here and insert it into this, and you've got a complete ritual again. I've always taken that kind of approach as read. Now, since the early 1970s, I was putting rituals together with bits from the Vedic papyrus and bits from Grimoire's prototype and so on. And so, that's another thing. I do cater for people who want to do grimoires but have a pagan background. Certainly one of the things that this grimoire includes is, that shouldn't get in the way. It's not even particularly difficult hurdle to overcome if you just look at things slightly differently.
Yeah. And have you retained the so-called Christian veneer that's found in so many grimoires?
Yes, to a large extent, but as I say, I've also given a bit of a guide to how those could be substituted. For instance, materials like the Pictrix and so on, which are more sort of hermetic pagan in origin, but exactly the same kind of familial structure. The grimoires weren't originally Christian, and they certainly weren't originally Catholic. I mean, strong Catholic strand in the grimoires, but as far as I know, the Byzantine Empire was never Catholic, and a lot of materials came from there. Again, in fact, Byzantine Empire had this weird sort of interplay between late pagans and Christians, and an ongoing stress line in their culture. But no, I haven't gone into a great deal of history, and so on. But I have tried to be very enabling. And there's definitely a few surprises in there, which cover angles academics can't really go to.
Yeah. So the problem with academics is they don't do magic, so they can't.
Mostly no. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, they well might actually. So, which spirits are you working with in this book?
Well, again, that's slightly open. Planetary spirits and so on being what they are. Come under lots of different names, demons and angels and so on. But I've aimed it in a more Paracelsian direction of Olympic spirits. The Secret Grimoire will be in the background. Olympic spirits are a much closer conception than planetary angels to planetary gods. Name is the clues in the name. Olympic spirits. A Paracelsian ontology goes back to square one in a lot of ways. It gives us Olympic spirits for dealing with the planets or planetary or things that are classified under the planet, and elemental spirits, and they encompass everything. They're not a new layer of complication for a system of correspondences. They're a new way of regarding all the others. It's a new ontological pattern. So there might be folklore spirits who could be classified as elementals. There might be angels who could be reclassified as Olympics. It's a new lens, much simpler lens, which doesn't assume any particular religious background, either Greek or Roman or Christian. Just the planetary pattern of the planetary gods. We know what they do. And by implication, elementals as well. That's pretty much where I've been going for the last several years. Adopting Paracelsian ontology as a scientific or semi-scientific way of reclassifying all spirits whatsoever, whatever Western magical culture or layer they come from, they can be reclassified as Olympics or elementals. and that makes life a lot easier.
Yeah. And do you go into like the training of a magician, like you know, how to build your psychic senses and stuff like that? It's not like a mastering witchcraft or a
No, it's very focused on grimoire ritual, you know, as a working mechanism. Uh, yeah, I don't assume that the grimoires cover everything, but I try to cover as much about the grimoires as I can. But no, psychic training and so on, you know, leave for people to discover their own angles on that to a large extent. I mean, I'm not a very balanced individual, to be honest. And most people seem to think the psychic training involves obtaining balance, whereas I'm always about making things tilt, because that's how change happens.
yeah. I think magic comes more from imbalance than balance, to be honest.
Hopefully, you know, the status quo is balance. You want to give it a nudge in another direction. You have to introduce in.
Well, stasis produces nothing, does it?
Absolutely.
So I was reading your Bornless one pamphlet the other day.
Mhm.
There was some interesting bits from your magical journal about some of the phenomena you encountered while you were doing a working.
Oh yes.
So are you still working magic regularly, Jake?
Well, I'm in a position where I have to do a certain maintenance dose on a daily basis. Yes, I have time. Yeah, I have various agreements with spirits that have to be maintained, and you know they keep their end up, so I have to do mine. But no, I don't have any frantic activity at the moment. But I'm strongly considering a new project before very long, which, strangely enough, will be grimoire related. Yeah.
You're very prodigious writer. I mean, the 5 books of the Encyclopedia Goetica would have taken a normal person several lifetimes alone, and you've got all the other stuff as well. I don't know how you do it. I think you do have some help there, Jake.
Yeah, I'm also quite a hyper person, as well as a very lazy person. I can be a very hyper person. I get into projects in quite an obsessive way. So that's part of it, yeah. But yeah, Encyclopedia Goetica, yeah, I might be seeing, well, we will be seeing the second edition of True Grimoire before long.
Yeah, I've heard about that.
Yeah, we haven't had to make a great many changes. It's been expanded, and the bibliography is going to be quite extensively revised. Although you have to hold back a little bit because there's so much good stuff, but it's not all necessarily apropos specifically. But yeah, that's the main revising point. But 2 fairly large additional essays as well, which have been published before but are hard to get hold of and very relevant.
So the True Grimoire is going to be Scarlet Imprint.
Yes. Yeah.
And the one we're talking about today is Hadean Press, of course.
Hadean Press, yeah, I managed to keep 2 publishers going at once. Yeah, so, yeah, a bit hyper.
So tell us more. What you mentioned in the conversation we had before in text about these unexpected angles. Can you give us a little hint into what they might be?
Well, sort of sources for invocations is certainly one of them. Yeah, not giving any spoilers away, but as well as the pick tricks and other places, which one might sort of expect. Yeah. I found some other indications of poetry gods from less likely sources, and grimoire purists can go huff and puff as much as they like about that. It's legitimate as far as I'm concerned. Another angle I've gone into is, how does one deal with, or how might one deal with the fact that a lot of grimoire magicians in the past were disreputable clerics? Is this some kind of qualification, or isn't it? And how might we approach it if it is useful? So defrocked, defrocked priest, maybe deaf black master priest, being the start line for that. So yeah, that's a bit unexpected. It's not a book for people who are Christophobic, but as I say, if you read it without prejudice, you'll see that there are options for pagans, and it's fairly easy to slip from one paradigm to the next. But at the same time, one needn't be too snippy about Christianity as a monolithic thing, because it isn't.
Yeah.
All the witches we know of, the real ones, were Christians, not pagans. So I don't see that as particularly controversial. I do understand why it's difficult for some people, particularly Americans who've got where there's this scummy version of Christianity around. But yeah, I consider myself pagan, but I'm able to learn from sources which started out as pagan but eventually became Christian, which I think is a fair description of the grimoire tradition. It goes back to the PTM and further. It was originally pagan, and a lot of things people think Christians introduced were actually there already. For instance, there's this thing about compelling demons. That's a horrible thing to do. When you go back to ancient Egypt, you find out the Egyptian sorcerers used to compel their gods. There's even a technical term for it. And then, the early Neoplatonists were really upset about it. Compelling the gods, you can't do that. Well, the Egyptian magicians were doing it.
Yeah, there's some god threatening in the that's tradition, isn't it?
Yes, totally. They're totally. And yes, we can reduce the coercive element, but to assume that it's only there because Christians treat gods as demons is just ridiculous. That's not how it got there. I do prefer less coercive methods, but you need to be able to be a scary person to be a magician, a conjuring magician. You need to be able to be scary and stand on your own 2 feet and strike your stuff occasionally. It's not all fluffy bunny stuff. I mean, this is my issues with demonology.
Yeah.
It's daft.
Yeah, that's a bit silly, isn't it? That demons are your pal, and you don't need a circle. You just listen to an N and light some incense. And,
maybe you get to know the spirit first before you decide whether you want to be buddy.
So in this book, Grimoire, do you go into tool construction, consecration, circles?
Yep, all of that.
All the components you need.
Yeah. Laid out very neatly. And some pointers there. There's a way you might accumulate stuff like that from. But yeah, it's basically a grimoire for working with the Olympic spirits, with invocation and talismanic magic, which are closer to each other than people suspect.
So the Olympic spirits, excuse my ignorance, but are they the Arbitel spirits?
Yeah. Secret Grimoire draws on that strand. As do quite a lot of the blue grimoires, and you find the Olympic spirit sigils in the Grand Grimoire and elsewhere on occasion. They're quite widespread. The Arbitel is what it is. It's got Paracelsian tendencies, but the idea of Olympic spirits itself comes more directly from Paracelsus, and the way he deals with it is kind of interesting. He wasn't necessarily talking about astrology. I go into this a bit in Testament of Cyprian, but the idea of spirits as within your body, or able to pass within your body. Rather than up in the sky somewhere. And the planets as a handy classification. But nonetheless, I go into planetary days and hours and other stuff because it's all part of the pattern. Whether or not it actually represents planetary stuff astrologically or not. It's not necessary always to identify why something's there. Sometimes it becomes clear later, sometimes it doesn't. but the patterns themselves are useful. Planetary days and hours, I don't think come from astrology. I think they come from Egyptian Deccan magic originally, and astrological correspondences were laid over the decans, and then later on, because people are lazy, started talking about planetary days and hours. But originally, it's about the decan that's rising at the time, which the Egyptians wouldn't have corresponded to.
So I actually had expected it to be more grimoire verum based.
Yeah, but a lot of people are a bit frightened about jumping into working with demons straight away. Yeah, so if you want to get going with the grimoires, then a neat Paracelsian pattern is a good way to go. You'll get to know how the nuts and bolts are assembled into something. Without necessarily making pacts with demons and so on.
No pacts. No pacts.
No.
Wow.
Shocking state of affairs.
Yeah, because the Arbitel, I mean, it's often recommended for people starting out in evocatory magic to try these Olympic spirits. And there are some people that insist that the Arbitel is complete, but I've got a copy and it doesn't seem complete to me, It's just got basically aphorisms, and then it's got a invocation and a license to depart, but it doesn't say anything about tools, circles, anything.
Whereas, for all its faults, the Secret Grimoire does. It has an instrumentarium, which is fairly simple to get together, and it's fairly obvious what everything's for. And so and as I say, it's based on older texts, which are based on yet older texts. So I've reforged it into a more user-friendly pattern, but kept all the good points and indeed emphasised and clarified them, and had my own say here and there as well.
So have you got like an introduction where it kind of do you jump straight into the practical magic, or have you got a Jake Stratton-Kent kind of, this is where this came from, like a theoretical bit at the start, or do you just dive straight in?
Not nearly as much commentary as there is with True Grimoire. No, but yeah, I've laid out reasons for why I've done it the way I've done, and encourage people to engage as quickly as possible. It's not something I don't think people put magic off until they're totally prepared, because if they do, they never will. Like I say, all good primers are really chuck people in at the deep end while pretending it's beginner stuff. There's part of that ethos in there, certainly, but it's a less scary, less intimidating level of things than through Grimoire, and it's thinner too.
Mm-hmm.
And hopefully it will be the first of a little series.
Oh, cool.
Which will get progressively dark, as it were, getting into more Grimoire and verum type territory. But I want people to have facility with Grimoire stuff beforehand, or to make it more accessible. People are going in different directions anyway. But this is a good launch pad for getting involved with Grimoire magic. It's not Solomonic, which I think is a good thing. To open the territory. I do stress that Paracelsian ontology is a lot more user friendly. And it's not just something you put on in yet another column 777. No, it redefines everything. Rather than trying to unify irreconcilable things, like the gods and angels. Which you can only really do through one brand of neo-Platonism or another. There has to be a supreme deity for it to work. If you don't accept the idea of a supreme deity, where are you to go? Which is something I don't. There we go.
So, what next? You've got your True Grimoire hardback coming out,
Mm-hmm.
and you're going to do a few more.
We released it in the new form as well.
Mm-hmm. And then any other big projects coming up, Jake?
There's been talk of redoing the whole Encyclopedia Gore, although hopefully there wouldn't be a whole lot of editing necessary. There hasn't been for True Grimoire, very few changes. So that's a possibility. But no, this primer thing is something I'll be having a few other shots at. And pulling strands out of all the stuff I've been trying to do as one book into more convenient sort of booklets and small books. I want to do a good one on the lunar mansions. That's complicated a little by some of the material I want to introduce that people may not be aware of, but has been around for a while. But once I've got the balance on how to do that, that should follow up very, very quickly as the next one from Hadian Press. But yeah, the muse can occasionally pull the steering wheel over quite hard. You're doing something else.
Yeah, but no autobiography.
Not ever, not ever. Some more anecdotal stuff from time to time. When I'm talking about primer material, I think it's perhaps useful to include some anecdotal stuff about myself as a beginner. Yeah, but otherwise, no plans for an autobiography. Too incriminating.
Yeah. Names have been changed to protect the guilty.
Yes, exactly.
Well, Jake, I don't want to drill you for hours on the new book. I just wanted to really give you a chance to promote it, and it's always a delight to have you on the channel. You fairly pull in the views. So I like the haircut. So thanks very much, Jake. I cannot wait to read the book, and I will be in touch. Hopefully you'll come on again sometime and you get another new thing.
That would be wonderful.
Cheers, Jake.
All right. All the best, mate.
See you later, mate. Ciao, ciao.